In reality, were you ready for that breakup when Phil said, let's split up?
It was a decision that we both came to. I wouldn't say either one of us said more than the other, hey, let's not do this. I mean, we were just talking about where we were and what was going on and came to the conclusion that it would be best if we did.
I am James, and this is Golf Relived. There were 5 caddies who looked their legendary player in the eye and thought, I can't stand him. And every single one of them had a very good reason. Golf sells you a beautiful lie. It tells you the caddy and the player are brothers, partners, a team. And for a long time, fans believe it. But behind the trophies and the handshakes and the shared celebrations, there is a much darker story. Caddies get used. They get blamed. They get tossed out like they never mattered at all. What does a player have to do for a loyal caddy to finally snap? How do you build something legendary together and then treat the other person like they never existed? Today, we are going to find out. And the place to start is not at the beginning. It is at a quiet moment in May 2022 that meant everything to one man who had been waiting decades for it. At the 2022 PGA Championship, Justin Thomas won the tournament. And the very first thing he did when he walked off the 18th green was hand the hole flag to his caddy, Jim Bones Mackay. It was a small gesture. It took 3 seconds. But for people who knew the full story, it was one of the most powerful moments in years. To understand why that mattered, we have to go back, way back, and we have to meet 5 caddies who were pushed too far. If you are enjoying this kind of story, hit the hype feature and give this video some hype right now. It costs nothing and it helps the channel more than you know. Now, let us get into it, starting with the man whose story ended at a Mexican golf course in 2018. Number 5. David El Tucán Ortiz and Matt Kuchar. This one is different from the others. It did not take years to fall apart. It took 1 week, and the damage it did was permanent. David Ortiz was a local caddy in Mexico. He worked the El Camaleon course, knew every slope and every wind shift. When Matt Kuchar showed up at the 2018 Mayakoba Golf Classic without his regular caddy, the tournament organizers brought Ortiz in. He was good at his job. He knew that course better than almost anyone. And that week, Kuchar shot 22 under par and won his first PGA Tour title in over 4 years. The winner's check was $1.296 million. Under normal PGA Tour rules, a winning caddy earns between 8 and 10% of that. That would have been somewhere between $100,000 and $130,000 for Ortiz. Instead, Kuchar handed him $5,000. That is 0.38% of his winnings. Not a typo, $5,000. When the story got out, Kuchar defended it. He said there had been a sliding scale agreement before the tournament began. He said the extra $1,000 on top of the base rate was a thank you. Then he went further. He told the media that for a local caddy who makes $200 a day, a $5,000 payday was a really big week. He said Ortiz should feel good about it. His exact words about the extra amount were this: the extra $1,000 was a thank you. It was a great week. That quote, that cool and dismissive attitude, blew up globally. Fans and media were furious. Kuchar had made over $46 million in career earnings. Ortiz was a working man trying to support his family, and the guy with $46 million thought $5,000 was generous. Kuchar's agent, Mark Steinberg, was contacted by the director of golf at the course, a man named David Lopez, who pushed back on behalf of Ortiz. Steinberg's initial reply was simple and cold. He said, no, what we paid you is fair. It was only after Lopez warned that the story was taking on racial and socioeconomic meaning, and after a wave of corporate sponsor pressure hit, that Kuchar finally gave in. 3 months later, he apologized and paid Ortiz the $50,000 the caddy had asked for. That number was still well below what tour standards would have required. For Ortiz, the resolution was bittersweet. The money helped him fix his home, but the publicity from the scandal disrupted his plans to open a laundromat because he feared local contractors, now aware of his payout, would inflate their prices. His reflection on the whole thing was quiet and dignified. He said he was only disappointed by how it all finished. That single line says everything. He was not angry. He was just let down by a man who looked at a working person and saw someone with no leverage, no options, and no voice. And that kind of thinking was not limited to one player or 1 week. Number 4 takes us into a pattern that ran for years, carried by one of the most iconic figures the sport has ever produced. Number 4, Pete Coleman and Seve Ballesteros. Pete Coleman was one of the most respected caddies on the European Tour. He worked for legends. He spent 22 years alongside Bernhard Langer. He knew what a professional partnership looked like. But when he talked about the hardest boss he ever had, the answer was always Seve Ballesteros. Coleman described working for Seve as a psychological trap with no exit. If you stayed quiet on a club selection to give the player space, Seve would berate you for not speaking up. If you offered advice, Seve would berate you for interfering. There was no correct answer. There was no safe move. You were set up to absorb the blame no matter what happened, so that Seve could walk away with his self-image intact. Coleman described it plainly. He said that with Seve, even if you thought you were right, you did not say too much, and then Seve would give you a rollicking for not speaking up. That double bind, that system where you lose either way, was not an accident. It was how Ballesteros operated. And Coleman was not the only one who suffered under it. He pointed to the experience of his close friend, the late caddy Dave Musgrove, as the clearest proof that this behavior was a pattern, not a moment. In 1979, Musgrove caddied for Ballesteros at the Open Championship at Royal Lytham and St. Anne's. They won. It was Seve's first Open title and one of the most celebrated victories of his career. Musgrove showed up to the next tournament expecting some kind of acknowledgement. What he found instead was a letter from Ballesteros waiting for him. Not a thank you, not a kind word. A written list of every mistake Ballesteros claimed Musgrove had made during that winning week. And on top of that, there was no bonus. Just the bare minimum 5% of winnings, which was the standard floor, not a reward. No recognition, no celebration, just a list of complaints after they had just won a major together. The pattern Coleman describes across his time around Ballesteros is one of caddies serving as shock absorbers for a brilliant but volatile man who could not accept his own failures. And the same volcano that Coleman documents in theory was something another caddy witnessed explode in real time. Number 3, Billy Foster and Seve Ballesteros. Billy Foster spent 5 years on Seve's bag. They won 8 times together, including a PGA Championship and the World Match Play. Foster called Seve a fruitcake. He said the man was driving him completely insane, but he stayed. He stayed because that is what caddies do. They commit, they adapt, they absorb. The pressure of working for Ballesteros forced Foster into impossible choices. At the 1994 Benson and Hedges International Open at St. Melian, Seve was holding a 2-shot lead on the final hole. He wanted to hit a risky 5-iron over water. Foster knew it was too risky. He knew a small misstrike would end the tournament, so he lied. He added 6 yards to the yardage figure and forced Seve into hitting a safer 4-iron. Ballesteros hit it safely over the water and won. And then Foster told him what he had done. Rather than being grateful, Seve was furious. The caddy had saved the title, and the player was angry about it. That tells you everything you need to know about the dynamic. The explosion that ended the working relationship came at the 1995 Masters at Augusta National. Seve was struggling, and when Seve struggled, someone nearby paid for it. Foster was that person. On the back nine, a bad club choice on 17 led to a bogey, and Seve launched into a public, relentless verbal attack on Foster that carried all the way down to the 18th tee. Foster felt the pressure building inside him. He described it as a volcano. He said if Seve had one more go at him on that 18th tee, he was going to erupt. Seve had one more go. The volcano erupted. Foster shouted back at the top of his lungs. Other players and caddies nearby, including Ray Floyd and his caddy Steve Williams, were stunned. After the round, the confrontation continued on the side of the Augusta clubhouse, where Foster absolutely destroyed Seve verbally. He let out years of pent-up frustration in one moment. He called the Spanish legend every name imaginable. Days later, Foster received a phone call from Seve's manager. He was fired. The two men did eventually repair their personal friendship over the years, but the professional relationship was gone. And the working trust, the thing that makes a caddy willing to carry your bag through a storm, never came back. And while Seve's pattern damaged some, there is one betrayal that played out on the biggest stage in the world and broke a different kind of record entirely. Number 2, Steve Williams and Tiger Woods. 13 years, 80 wins. 13 of Tiger's 14 major championships during their time together. Steve Williams was not just a caddy. He was Tiger's enforcer, his protector, his most loyal defender. And the way that loyalty was repaid is one of the most stunning stories in the sport. It started to break apart in November 2009, when Tiger's personal scandal became global news. Williams had been kept completely in the dark. He knew nothing about Tiger's private life. But suddenly, he was standing in the middle of a worldwide media storm, fielding questions he could not answer, looking like someone who either lied or was completely shut out by the man he had given 13 years to. Williams begged Tiger's management team, through agent Mark Steinberg, to release a statement publicly clearing him of any knowledge or involvement. The team refused. Their reasoning was cold. Publicly exonerating Williams might suggest others in the inner circle were complicit, so they left him exposed. Williams described himself as angry, frustrated, and hung out to dry. Beyond the scandal, there were years of quiet resentment already building on the course. Williams later said he felt treated like a slave rather than a partner. He pointed to Tiger's habit of throwing clubs toward the bag and expecting Williams to pick them up. He also said Tiger's habit of spitting at the hole after missed putts genuinely disgusted him. A face-to-face meeting in March 2010 patched things temporarily, but the trust was already gone. The final break came in July 2011 at the AT&T National. Tiger was sidelined with an injury, but attended the event for his charity foundation. He called Williams into the clubhouse and fired him. The reason given was that Williams had caddied for Adam Scott during Tiger's layoff. Williams said he had sought and believed he had received permission. Tiger saw it differently. And just like that, 13 years was over. Williams's public reaction was raw. He said he had wasted 2 years of his life. He said he had lost respect for Tiger, along with a lot of other people. The bitterness reached its lowest point that November at a Caddy Awards dinner in Shanghai, where Williams made a racially charged remark about his former employer. He later apologized and shook hands with Tiger at the Australian Open, but the relationship was dead. For Williams, the realization that a decade of total loyalty had been treated as completely disposable left a wound that never healed. And nothing that came later changed that. Which brings us back to where we started, and to the caddy whose quiet vindication at a championship in 2022 said more than any speech ever could. Number 1, Jim Bones Mackay and Phil Mickelson. 25 years, 5 major championships. Bones was the most famous caddy in the world because of Phil. And for a long time, the public believed they were golf's perfect partnership. The truth was very different. When biographer Alan Shipnuck published his unauthorized book on Mickelson, the reality came out. The public split in June 2017 was described as mutual and amicable. It was not. Mackay had fired Mickelson at the 2017 Memorial Tournament. The biggest reason was money. Mickelson owed Mackay hundreds of thousands of dollars in back pay. Federal audits connected to a separate legal case involving professional gambler Billy Walters revealed that between 2010 and 2014, Mickelson had lost somewhere between $40 million and $56 million gambling. Despite earning huge sums annually, his overhead was enormous. Private jets, multiple properties, a massive California tax bill, and, according to reports, the purchase of a genuine Tyrannosaurus Rex skull. With his cash flow stretched to breaking point, Mickelson chose to withhold Mackay's earned wages rather than cut his own spending. He effectively used his caddy as a personal line of credit. Beyond the money, Mickelson undermined Mackay in more personal ways. The two publicly joked that Mackay had 1 veto per year over Phil's risky shot selections. Bones himself revealed what that actually meant in practice. He said he tried to use it at the 2002 Open Championship, and Phil told him the veto was domestic only, meaning it could not be used outside the United States. A veto that only works at home is not a veto. It is a performance. One of the deepest cuts involved the 18 flag tradition. In professional golf, it is a long-standing custom for a player to give their caddy the flag from the 18th hole of a major championship win. Mickelson kept the flags from his early wins, claiming he wanted to give them to his grandfather. Mackay accepted that, but Phil went on to win 4 more majors and dozens more events after that. He kept every single flag. People close to Mackay described this as a giant insult. The trophies, the green jackets, the checks, the glory all went to Phil. Mackay could not even keep a piece of nylon as a memory. When the partnership ended in 2017, Mickelson did ship the major flags to Mackay. But as a final act of disrespect, he signed each one in enormous, comically oversized letters. Those close to Bones said the signatures completely disfigured the flags. Mackay refused to hang a single one in his home. He could not look at them. That detail, right there, a man who spent 25 years building one of golf's greatest careers and could not display a single memento from it, is one of the saddest images in this entire story. And then came May 2022. Justin Thomas won the PGA Championship with Bones on the bag. And the moment the round ended, Thomas walked straight over to Mackay and placed the flag in his hands. No hesitation, no waiting. It was immediate, and it was public, and it was everything Mickelson had refused to give for 25 years. The golf world noticed. Everyone who knew the history understood what it meant. These 5 stories share the same ugly truth underneath. Whether it was a local Mexican caddy handed an envelope with $5,000, or a loyal partner left holding disfigured flags he could not display, or a man who spent 13 years defending someone who never once defended him back, the pattern is always the same. The player protects the brand. The player protects the money. The player protects the image. And the caddy absorbs the damage. Caddies have no union, no formal contracts, no protection when a player decides they are done. They operate on trust and handshakes and loyalty and nothing else. And when that trust is broken by the person with all the power, there is nowhere to go and no one to call. These men gave their best years to some of the greatest players the sport has ever seen. They carried the bag through the heat and the wind and the pressure. They lost sleep over yardages and shot selections and weather forecasts. They lied about distances to save titles that were not even theirs to win. And more than once, they were paid back with withheld wages, public humiliation, cold dismissals, or an envelope with $5,000 in it. The caddies in this story deserve more respect than they were given, not because they want sympathy, but because what they contributed was real and measurable and undeniable. Wins do not happen on talent alone. They happen because someone is standing next to that talent, doing the quiet work that nobody sees, making the call that saves the tournament, staying calm when the player cannot. It is time more fans knew that. Like this video, share it, and subscribe to Golf Relived if you believe caddies deserve the full story told right. We will keep telling it every time.